Well, we are going to continue our look at Moses. And I'll remind you that I'm not covering all of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. I'm skipping through to catch the events that show the man Moses. And that's still a lot of material. So that's why it's a few lessons. I hope you're enjoying this. I really do. So we're going to jump to Numbers chapter 10, in between where we left off with Nadab and Abihu's death. Last lesson, Mount Sinai, they've been there for 2 years, 2 months, and 20 days. And God says, it's time to move on. So that's where we begin, and what we're skipping over is a lot of the laws that God gave, all the specifics. That's an interesting study, by the way, but I'll let you do it on your own, or if you'd like, see me and we'll do it together. So Numbers chapter 10, the Israelites left Mount Sinai, and Moses convinced Hobab, his Midianite brother-in-law, to travel with the Israelites because he knew the area they would be traveling through. And remember, the area the Israelites were traveling through was a wilderness, with much of it classified as a desert. And the Bible, by the way, does tell us in a couple of different places that Midianites, quite a few Midianites, traveled with the Israelites through the wilderness for 40 years, more or less, because some of them joined kind of later, and even into their conquest of the Promised Land. Do you think Hobab was the leader of all those? Maybe. He was significant. So every day when it was time to travel, Moses would say, "Stand up, God, and may your enemies scatter and flee from you." And when they stopped each day, Moses would say, "Return, God, to the countless thousands of Israelites." You think he varied that a little bit from day to day? I don't know, maybe. If he had a sense of humor like mine, then again, he was closer to God. Maybe he said it exactly the way God told him to, so I don't know. What do you think? So anyway, when they left Mount Sinai, they traveled for 3 days before they set up camp again. I imagine, desert and everything, I imagine they stopped each night, slept on the ground, got up in the morning, took off. No tents or anything, or at least maybe just small tents. It's a climate where you're not going to freeze, and they don't get a lot of rain. That's why it's a desert. So, and as usual, when they came to camp, Moses had to listen to the Israelites whining and griping and complaining about everything about their lives. Eventually, God became extremely angry with his people. He sent fire to burn some of the people. And the people shouted, "Moses, Moses, Moses, hey, Moses, plead with God to stop the fire. We're sorry for our behavior." I bet they were. And Moses said, "God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, listen to me now. Your people have repented. Please stop the fire from burning them." And God stopped the fire. It didn't take too much longer, however, before Moses became tired of the complaints again. And he called out to God, "God, what have I done to cause you to become so angry with me? Why do I have to carry these people like little babies? I just can't do it anymore. I'm tired. Please, just kill me. Let me be done with this." God says, "Moses, Moses, Moses. Moses, pick 70 elders that you know are leaders that people will follow. Gather them in the tabernacle, and I will come speak with you. I will give them some of my spirit so that they can share your burden. When the 70 elders were in the tabernacle with Moses, God's Spirit came down, and 70 elders started to prophesy. Now, there were 2 men out in the camp that started prophesying too. I'm guessing they were 2 of the 70. We don't know. And Joshua said, Moses, stop those 2 from prophesying. And Moses said, Joshua, are you jealous for me? Don't be. I wish everyone of God's people had God's Spirit like that and were prophets. All this shows, that's what leaders sometimes get very tired of leading people. Trust me, I know. And sometimes they just want a break. Moses wanted a break. Get the 70 elders, and he's feeling good, and Joshua says, hey, stop those 2. I can imagine Moses saying, oh, no, please don't. I need every bit of help I can get. Pray for your leaders. It's a tremendous responsibility to be one of God's leaders. I mean, you're responsible for the souls, the very souls of the people. The Bible says that. Anyway, eventually Moses' sister Miriam and his brother Aaron began to spread their complaints against Moses. Mostly that Moses had married a Cushite. They said that God had spoken through them just like God spoke through Moses. They wanted more credit. Now, Miriam was the oldest of the 3. It was Miriam, Aaron, and then Moses. The Bible says that Jethro and his daughter, who was Moses' wife, Zipporah, were Midianites. And here Zipporah was called a Cushite by Miriam and Aaron. Now, Midianites were basically the same skin tone as Israelites, the majority of the Middle East. Cushites, they were black. So which name applied to Moses' life? Miriam calls her a Cushite, but the Bible called her a Midianite. I guess the simplest explanation makes the most sense to me. I've read several other explanations, but the only one that makes sense is that she was actually a Midianite who was deeply tanned. Miriam and Aaron called her a Cushite in order to emphasize that she was very different from the Israelites. Truthfully, I suspect she wasn't that much darker than the Israelites, since Midianites and the Israelites were what is often called olive-colored, and would have all tanned pretty good. But as we know, some people tan darker than others. That's the only explanation that makes sense to me. Anyway, Miriam and Aaron are complaining against Moses, and God says, Moses, Aaron, Miriam, I want all 3 of you to come to the tabernacle. When they were there, God spoke. Aaron and Miriam, step forward and listen to me. If there is a prophet among you, then I show myself to them in visions and dreams. However, Moses is different. I speak to him face to face. We have conversations in plain language, not with riddles like I speak to others. So why aren't you afraid to speak against my very special friend, Moses? Oh, God was angry with them. When he left the tabernacle, Miriam's skin was pure white with leprosy. Aaron saw that and he turned to Moses and he humbled himself. He said, Moses, my Lord, please forgive us for the sin we were so foolish to commit. Don't let Miriam be as white as a dead child being born. Moses said, God, please, God, heal her. And God said, if her father had spit in her face, she'd have been disgraced for 7 days. Confine her outside the camp for 7 days, and then she can return. And then, after those 7 days, the people moved the camp a few days further on. I guess they could have moved during those 7 days. We don't know. She could have just walked separate. Anyway, a few weeks later, we're jumping into Numbers 13 and 14 here. God said, Moses, I want you to send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I have promised to the children of Abraham. Moses selected 12 men. Shammua, Shaphite, Caleb, Igal, Joshua, Palti, Gadiel, Gadai, Gemalai, Michael, Vasi, and Geuel. Interestingly, no Levite was selected. So it was the 10 tribes, a man from each tribe, and a man from each of the 2 half-tribes of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. Moses said, men, go up through the Negev, which is the desert south of Israel, wilderness, desert, depends on what part. Men, go up through the Negev and into the hill country. Check out the land and the people. See if the land is good or bad. Look at their towns. Do they have walls? Is the soil rich or poor? Do trees grow there? Bring back some of their produce. And just quick note aside from everything. Do you know what tribe Joshua is from? Well, we know Moses was a Levite, tribe of Levi, but Joshua, it was his replacement and right hand during much of this, either him or Aaron. Depends on what they were doing. But what tribe was Joshua? Most of you are going to guess wrong, I promise you, unless you already knew this one. Would you like to think tribe of Judah? No, that was Caleb of the 12 spies. Tribe of Benjamin? No. Tribe of Levi? Oh, I already eliminated them. No. He was from the tribe of Ephraim. I would have never guessed that if I hadn't studied a few times. Anyway, the men returned after 40 days of exploring Canaan. They said the land was great, and they brought back some crops, including a branch that took 2 men to carry, and it had a single cluster of grapes on that branch. One cluster took 2 men to carry. Now, that's a big cluster of grapes. And probably pretty good tasting, don't you think? I mean, that land is known for their grapes. So when they got back, Joshua announced to all the people, because, everyone wanted to hear their report, people, the land is perfect for growing crops. But before he could go any further, Hori, another spy, jumped in and said, but the people there are strong. And Shammua says, their towns are large and fortified. Amiel says, some of the people there are giants. And the people began muttering and murmuring. Caleb said, people, listen, God will go with us. We can take this land. Sether, no way, we can't attack the people there. Igal, that's right. They have too many people and their towns are too fortified. Joshua shout, listen, people, listen to me, people. But when Joshua tried to speak, the people started shouting. And one man was heard over a lot of them saying, we are not going there. Another man said, it's too dangerous. We're all going to die. And a third man says, our wives and children will become slaves in that land when we're dead. And the people shouted against going. Gadai, one of the spies, shouts out, we must return to Egypt. And people began shouting, back to Egypt, back to Egypt. Caleb tries to calm the people, but they all turned their backs on him and walked away, and telling each other there was no way they could go to Canaan. Some wanted to return to Egypt, some didn't want to go there, but they didn't know where else they could go. Then the people started complaining about Moses and Aaron, saying they needed to select a new leader to take them back to Egypt. Now Moses and Aaron fell face down on the ground in front of the people. Joshua and Caleb, two of the spies, they tore their robes in front of the people, standing there by Moses and Aaron, and they wanted to attack Canaan. But the other 10 spies, no. And Joshua shouted, people, the land of Canaan is a good land, and we do not need to fear the people there because God will lead us there and give us that land, but only if you do not rebel against him. One man shouted, silence! People, don't listen to him. Another one shouted, stone all 4 of them. And people started shouting agreement with that. That was when God's glory appeared in front of the tabernacle. God said, Moses, how long will these people ignore me, violate my commands, refuse to believe in me? Why do they ignore the miracles I have performed to help them? I am going to send a plague that will destroy all of them. Then I will build a new nation, bigger, stronger, and you are going to be the father of that nation. Moses said, God, please don't do this. The Egyptians will hear about it, and they'll tell other nations about it. And, they've all heard about you and that these are your people. They know you have helped your people and that your cloud by day and pillar of fire by night led your people. If you kill all your people, all these nations are going to mock you and say that you broke your promise to your people by killing them. God, please show your strength, since you do not become angry quickly. Sorry, needed my water jug. Sore throat today. Not unusual for me. God, please show your strength, since you do not become angry quickly, but have great love and forgive sin and rebellion. You do punish people, sometimes their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, for their sins. But now, with all of your love, forgive the sin of your people, like you've pardoned them before, several times, since they left Egypt. God said, okay, Moses, because you have asked, I have forgiven them. However, not one single adult that left Egypt will ever see the promised land, the land I promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They have disobeyed me and tested me 10 times already. But I will allow Caleb and Joshua into the promised land because they believe in me and are totally committed to me. For now, I want you to turn away from the promised land and go into the desert on the trader's route heading towards the Red Sea. Moses, Aaron, how long will these wicked people grumble against me? I have heard their complaints. Now I want you to tell them what my plan is, that they will all die in the wilderness, every single adult. Every single one that was 20 years older or more older when they left Egypt will die in the wilderness because they rejected me. Only Caleb and Joshua will enter the promised land because they refused to go to the promised land. And for every day those 12 spies were in the promised land, I'm going to make them suffer 1 year in the wilderness. That's 40 days, means 40 years in the wilderness because of their sin. 40 years of suffering. This is what I have spoken, and it is what will be happening. They will learn what it means to fight against me. Well, the 10 spies that spoke against entering the promised land, convincing the people to reject the promised land, were the first to die from God's plague that he sent right then and there. Then Moses told the people everything God had said, and the people mourned bitterly. The very next morning, one man said, "Hey, everybody, let's go take the promised land." And people shouted their agreement. Another man said, "We've got to redeem ourselves because of our sin." The people agreed. And a third man says, "We should find the tallest hill so we can look down across the land." And people, yeah. A fourth man says, "Come on, let's go." And people shouted their agreement with great excitement. Now they're ready to go. Conquer Canaan. Moses said, "People, no, don't do this. If you disobey God's command, you will fail. Do not do this. God is not with you, and you will be defeated because you rejected God. He has rejected you. Your attack will fail." Well, the people ignored Moses again. They went to the tallest hill without Moses, without the Ark of the Covenant, God's covenant. The Amalekites and Canaanites attacked the Israelites and drove them quite a distance, all the way to Hormah. Did you realize that the Israelites had been in the wilderness for more than 2 years before God said it's going to be 40 years total? Did you ever think about that? When did he say 40 years? Well, it was right here when they refused to conquer Canaan. A little over 2 years into their 40. Interesting. Well, Numbers 16. This is titled Korah's Rebellion. And as time passed, people's attitudes changed with the Israelites frequently. Eventually, Korah and 3 followers, Dathan, Abiram, and On, became very insolent and openly opposed Moses. 250 leaders, respected leaders of the people, joined Korah and Dathan, Abiram, and On, and they all together confronted Moses and Aaron. Korah said, "You are too much. You aren't any better than anyone else. The whole nation is holy. Every single person has God with them." Moses fell face to the ground. He stood up and he said, "Tomorrow morning, God will demonstrate who serves him, who is actually holy. God will invite that man to come to him. Korah, you and all of your followers bring incense, censers with burning coals, put them in the tabernacle, and God will select the one who is truly holy. Levites should be satisfied with being chosen." Korah was a Levite. "Levites should be satisfied with being chosen to serve God, being set apart to serving God's tabernacle, serving the people as ministers. God chose your tribe to be special, but now you want more. You are standing against God here. Why do you try to become priests, trying to replace Aaron?" Moses sent a message, Dathan and Abiram, come talk to me. Dathan responded, why should we go to you? Haven't you done enough? You took us from the land flowing with milk and honey, so you could kill us in the wilderness. Now you want to rule us? You haven't brought us to a land flowing with milk and honey or given us our inheritance. You brought us to a land that's wilderness, and it's not even ours. Why do you treat us like slaves? Nope, we're not going to talk to you. Moses became very angry. Moses said, God, don't accept their offering. I have not taken any bribe from them. I have not done anything to harm them. Don't accept their offering. Korah, you and all of your followers appear before God tomorrow. All of you and Aaron, each man will put his censer before God. Well, Korah gathered all his followers and they went to the entrance to the tabernacle, and God's glory came down. God said, Moses and Aaron, stand away from everyone. I'm going to finish all of them. Moses and Aaron fell face to the ground and both said, God, please don't kill the entire nation because of the sin of one man. God said, okay, tell everyone to move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Moses told the people, everyone move away from them because of their wickedness. Don't even touch anything that belongs to them. If you don't do this, you will die because of their sins. So everyone moved away from them. Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, along with their families, stood in front of their tents. Moses spoke and said, people, now you will know that God has appointed me to lead you. This was not my idea. If these men die a natural death, then God has not chosen me. But if God does something totally new, and the earth opens up and swallows these men and their families and all of their possessions, then you will know that they were contemptuous of God. The moment Moses finished speaking, the ground under the three men opened up and swallowed them, their families, and everything they owned, and then it closed up right away. Hearing them cry out, all the Israelites ran away from there, terrified that the earth would swallow them up too. Then fire came from God and burned up the 250 men who'd offered their censers in the tabernacle. God said, Moses, tell Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, to remove the 250 censers from the burned remains. He's to scatter the coals from those censers outside of the camp. Scatter them. And then, because the censers are holy, hammer them into sheets to cover the altar as a sign to the Israelites. Eleazar did as God commanded. The next day, the people were complaining about Moses and Aaron, saying they had killed God's people. But when all the people gathered to confront Moses and Aaron, God's cloud and glory covered the tabernacle. Moses and Aaron went to the entrance to the tabernacle, and God said, Moses, get away from these people, and I will end them. Moses and Aaron fell face down to the ground. Moses said, Aaron, take your censer, add some incense and burning coals from the altar, and go to the gathering of the people to make atonement for the sin. The plague has started. Aaron did as Moses said, and he ran into the middle of the gathering. The plague stopped, but not before 14,700 people died, plus those who died with Korah. When the plague stopped, Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance to the tabernacle. You hear the frustration of God with his people? Do you hear the frustration of Moses with the people of God? Are we that much different today? Huh. Think about it. God bless you. I love you. And that ain't ever going to change. Bye now.